I'm super excited. I was telling Sarah, once you get me started talking about AI, I don't really stop. So hopefully this goes smoothly. It's nice being able to speak at Apple Maryland. I started my career in the nonprofit sector in Maryland. 15 years ago, I started as a prospect researcher at the Archdiocese of Baltimore. Just kind of fell into the field like I imagine most of us do. And so Apple Maryland kind of just brings me back to my roots. Along my time there, I started dabbling with data and predictive modeling. I then transitioned to a consulting firm where we did capital campaigns, where I did predictive modeling. Then I did grateful patient philanthropy and predictive modeling. Along the way, I met my now colleague, Nathan Chappell, and about 6 or 7 years ago, and we've been on this journey together for the past 7 years, delivering AI models to nonprofits. So I always love being able to talk to prospect researchers. If anybody's going to APRA-PD in Seattle in August, definitely stop by and see me there. I'm going to be presenting with one of our DSAI clients. I see some of our DSAI clients are here today, and some of my former colleagues from when I was back in Baltimore. So nice seeing everybody. And again, thank you for taking time to sit with me today. So we're going to be going through AI and the future of fundraising, right? Talk a little bit about DonorSearch for those of you that don't know, but primarily talking about where is the state of fundraising right now, where is the state of AI right now, and where do we see this going? And then how can you get started wherever you are on your journey, and how can you continue your process to make sure that you're leveraging this technology as best as possible, and at least start asking the questions if you haven't started yet. I imagine all of you being here, you have those questions going. Just are you working with team members? Are those questions just running internally in your head, or at all different stages, I assume? So DonorSearch, we've been around since 2007. We're the only data provider in our space that is dedicated solely to nonprofits. So every one of our clients is either a nonprofit or a vendor for nonprofits. We have no for-profit clients that are not touching nonprofit sector. We have employees all over, but we're really dedicated to, especially at DonorSearch AI, the division I oversee the data science team for, we're dedicated to making AI accessible by anyone and everyone. So if you are a DonorSearch client, you have access to a machine learning model called MLR, which stands for most likely to respond. This is trying to break the reliance on RFM. RFM is a very simple standard model to use. It stands for recency, frequency, monetary. Problem with RFM is it keeps reiterating the same names over and over again. It's very hard for anyone new to break into a high score of RFM. So we turned RFM into an AI model. So it predicts who will be at the high end of your RFM down the road, who's engaging in certain ways that they're going to be stronger supporters as they continue, and therefore most likely to respond to that next appeal. So if you're a DonorSearch client, definitely reach out to your client success associate, and they'll be able to get you started. It's already included in your contract. We really want to make sure that everyone has access to these types of technologies. We have a next level up of AI models called Enhanced Core, formerly called Insights. And then we have our DSAI custom models. Again, some of our clients are here today, are using those DSAI custom models. So wherever you are in your journey, we're right there alongside with you and able to get you started with AI and ML. We also have 40 plus CRM integrations. So we're able to connect the data that you have with our data and merge those two together in an easy way, just through your CRM. So if you don't see your CRM here, we probably have an integration and just have room on the splash page. So feel free to reach out to your client success member again, just to make sure that you're using that availability also. So not to date myself, but back 40 years ago almost, the wise Ferris Bueller once said, life moves pretty fast. And if you don't stop and take a look around once in a while, you might just miss it. That's a great line from a wonderful movie, but it also applies to technology, right? It applies to where we are today. AI is moving so incredibly fast. And if you don't stop to see what can it do, how can I get started, what is this thing that I really need to know about, you might get lost. I mean, there are some articles coming out even before ChatGPT when AI we've seen just skyrocket in the last year and a half, from Harvard Business Review saying that for organizations that don't adopt AI quickly, they're going to have a very hard time catching up, if at all, right? Now, again, there's 1,000 different flavors of AI, which we'll go through some of those today. So don't feel like this is, you know, punitive conversation. We want to make sure that, again, we're making this accessible to everyone. So you're not too late now, but you definitely want to get that conversation started if you haven't already at your organization. So it's not really a matter of if AI will change your role, your life, your tasks, your job, your organization. It's a matter of how, right? It's a known fact that if you use AI and you adopt AI, not just technically, but culturally as well, you will see significant advancements, right? Again, making sure it's the right AI. So going through a series of questions to make sure you're getting started. But if you're using AI responsibly, beneficially, and your team has adopted it, you will be performing at a different level than you were prior. You'll have more time back. You will be able to do more things that you weren't able to do before. So this is an absolute given. We haven't seen any type of technology like this today. I mean, in terms of the speed at which it's moving, there's never been anything like it. In terms of how it touches basically everything and everything you do, the closest comparison is electricity, right? You can't go throughout your day without interacting with electricity in one way or another. And it's running behind the scenes, like it powers everything you're doing. You don't really think about it because it's just always there. That's kind of how AI is, and definitely where it's going to be. It's going to be a part of every single aspect of your life, both personally and professionally. Already plays a significant role in your personal day-to-day, just running behind the scenes with Netflix, Amazon, Apple. And we're just going to see the same things in our professional day-to-day. That every tool you're using is going to have AI running behind it in a matter of, a year, 2 or 3 years. The problem is that the digital divide is what we're referring to that will widen very quickly, right? Those that jump into adopting, those that start just dipping their toes in the water, or those that are adverse to it and think that this is either a fad or it's going to replace them, or there's concerns about not knowing how to get started and so not getting started at all. That's going to make a significant gap in those that are performing well, and those that are, again, are going to have a hard time catching up if they ever catch up again, right? So what we're seeing with AI, a lot of conversations, and even in the for-profit sector, is that while it can do tremendous amounts of good, it can make people incredibly efficient, it's also going to lead to a significant amount of inequity, right? There are going to be this divide is going to be widened as a result of using AI. And the rich are going to get richer, the poor might get poorer. What this means for the nonprofit sector is there's going to be more challenges that only nonprofits are designed to address. And so this inequity, as a result, is going to give more opportunities for a positive spin on it for nonprofits to perform their mission. More challenges that are coming up that nonprofits, again, are designed to address, to challenge, and to make sure that we are helping to close that inequity gap. But AI is going to allow us to do our work better, but also give us more work to do as a result of how it's going to make that change in that digital divide. When we look at data, right, in 2010, so almost 15 years ago, the average number of algorithmic interactions per person was just under 300, right? And you can think of algorithmic interactions as, again, Netflix or Amazon. When you purchase something on Amazon, it takes that purchase into account and rechanges your algorithm so that way it makes better predictions to you next time. Or if you sit on something, put it in your cart, and then remove it, that also lets it know how you are or how you're not engaging, what you are or what you're not interested in. And so these algorithms are running behind the scenes all the time. 15 years ago, it was 300. Now we're looking at almost 5,000, right? And that is a significant increase. And again, 5,000 is going to be nothing compared to the next 10 years. So what does this mean for us personally, right? When we're interacting with our tools, with our devices, with our smartphones, which everybody probably has within 2 feet of them right now, what does that mean for us? Where do we have these different opportunities to have like human connection while we're always faced with technology, with data, with algorithms, and so on? And what about your donors? What about your prospects? They're constantly just bombarded with this information as well. And so we need to kind of make our spot in that opportunity for engaging with them, to have that connection, to have that attention from them, to establish that relationship. So average person, again, looks at their phone over 300 times a day, has 80 apps on their phone. I think I have closer to like 250, so I definitely need to scale that down. Has 12 subscriptions. I might be on the higher end of that as well. They see 5,000 to 7,000 images per day. So this is, again, a complete bombardment of your senses, right? So if you're sitting there, I mean, how many emails are you getting? Work emails, and then you go home and look at your personal email. There's that junk folder that's just filling up, the normal folder that gets filled up, even emails that bypass that junk filter. Like, just an overabundance of information for you to have to sift through just to get through your day, right? 1.7 megabytes of data is created every second for every person on Earth. And that number is probably a year and a half, almost 2 years old now. They haven't reported new numbers. That we know that the next time that's reported is going to be 10 to 15 to 20 times as much, just because of that exponential growth and AI coming into the fold. So when we're delivering all this data, when we're receiving all this data, the problem is that it decreases our attention span, right? Because it's just constant overstimulation. It used to be that our attention span was 12 seconds, but that's decreased by a third. It's now only 8 seconds. It's less of an attention span than a goldfish. For any of you who watched Ted Lasso, Ted says, be a goldfish, right? Forget about the past. Don't worry about it. Don't let that carry through into your future. Being a goldfish will be a luxury as it pertains to short-term memory. We would have a 10th increase in short-term memory if we were a goldfish. So this is, again, just, and bear with me because I promise that this whole presentation is not going to be negative. You are going to feel better once we get to the end of this presentation. Just a couple more slides of this. But this overstimulation has taken a toll on our attention. And we just need to figure out, again, where do we fit in, right? Because what we're doing is we're competing against for-profits. For-profits are in this race for intimacy, right? They have the budgets, they have research and development departments where they can just put finances and resources into testing out new methods of approaching, testing out new methods of interacting with their individuals, their constituents, just like we refer to them as constituents. And so we're competing against these organizations that are million, billion, trillion-dollar organizations, and we need to find our space in there. Tristan Harris, for any of you who have seen The Social Dilemma, a documentary on Netflix, incredible documentary, a little scary, but very informative. Him and his partner, they were the ones who created the infinite scroll. If you think back to original Facebook days, where instead of clicking on page 2 or page 3 or page 4, you just scroll down. And once they rolled that out, that immediately sucked us in, because then you never presented with the question of, all right, do I want to stop at the end of page 1, I hit the bottom, or do I go to page 2? The page just never ends. You could scroll back 5 years if you needed to. So that just sucks us in, and then all other platforms have adopted that method. It's hard to see or hard to find a website that now asks you to go to page 2 or page 3 or page 4. They're just all using that infinite scroll because they know that keeps you engaged. You just scroll one more article, and that list never ends. So as a result, it's no longer a race to the bottom of the brainstem of that simulation. It's a race to intimacy. These organizations want to know you as best as they possibly can, right? That's where data is the new oil, the new gold. The more they know about you, the more they capture about you, the better they understand you and your motivations, who you are as an individual, and they can model what you're likely to do in the future, right? If you ever log into a new account, create a new account somewhere, and it asks you to put in an email and then create your own password, or it gives the option to just use Google as your login, I always default to using Google because it's one click and then I'm done. The reason that it's one click and then I'm done is because Google now will be able to capture all that data that I have created with this new account. And again, the more data Google has on me, combined with their search history, combined with using my thermostat, combined with where I drive, where I go to, what I'm looking at, they know who I am as an individual. They know my motivations, my interests, my dislikes, and they can target me better, right? So again, they want to know me as intimately as possible. And that's where all these organizations are going. And it only gets worse because they're using AI, right? Where we are now, like AI, this genie has been let out of the bottle, especially since ChatGPT, November 2018, the last year and a half or 20 months. Um, this is not going back. No one can turn this off. We're not going to go back to the way it was before. This is something that is just out there now, and we all have to come to terms with it, right? It cannot be contained. The best we can do is put guardrails around it, around we as individuals and organizations and corporations are using it so that we're doing it in responsible, ethical, but also for the nonprofit sector, beneficial ways, right? Responsible and ethical are good, but beneficial is necessary for us, which I'll talk about a little bit more. So again, if the connection is currency in the attention economy, we're competing with those for-profits, right? There are 1.8 million nonprofits, but those are not our only competitors. We're not just competing against different organizations in a sector like Maryland or neighboring areas. We're competing against Under Armour, Nike, and Apple, and Google, and Amazon, who are also trying to engage with the same individuals, right? There are, jumping back to the thousands of emails, like, not that we're recommending you send more emails, but these other organizations that don't really have the same kind of budget constraints as nonprofits notoriously do, they can send as many emails as they want. They can oversaturate any of that stimulation that the individuals have access to. That 8% attention span can be just completely taken over by for-profits because that's their marketing budget. That's what they do, and that's what they do best, and using all the data to market even better. So we're just in a position where we need to change, right? We need to be in a more immediate adoption of AI. We need to catch up with the for-profit sector. And so this need for innovation has never been greater. There's that pretty generic stat of for-profit sector is always 10 years ahead of the nonprofit sector. We're always very slow to adopt, very slow to change. We can't have that, but AI allows us to catch up quicker, right? So it's like we've been playing this race against for-profits, like we're competing against them, but we're not really competing against them. It's like there's a football game going on, but we're in the parking lot with ice skates and we show up at halftime. So we don't even know we're in the race. For-profits don't think that they're competing with us. Like, we are just this small, relatively small in terms of the way that for-profits see it, area that is trying to compete and take away their constituents. But that's where we need to adopt AI to be able to close that gap and to make our mark in how we're addressing our constituents and so on. So we also know that there's been this, again, working with Nathan Chappell, there's been this systemic decline in charitable participation. And if this continues, this generosity crisis, it's going to lead to individual nonprofits potentially not give, or individuals not giving to nonprofits in our lifetime. In the next 49 years, many individuals would stop giving, if any give at all, if this trend continues. So we can't do it is very dystopian. And again, where this is the first half, we're almost at the change where it's going to get much better. All I'm trying to say with this is we cannot continue to do things the same way we've always done and assume that it will change, right? Imagine that each of you can think about your organizations and see every year it's getting harder and harder to raise more money when there are less individuals giving and less individuals giving less dollars, right? But your goals are ever increasing and you just aren't seeing those results. Retention is down year after year. Average gift is down year after year. Like, these are facts that the nonprofit sector is being faced with. And we can't just put our heads in the sand and say, it's going to go away, it's going to change, this is just temporary. This is something that we need to address, and we need to use the tools that are available in order to address them. So if you haven't read The Generosity Crisis, I definitely recommend it. It really puts this all into perspective, kind of gives more historical on how we got here, but putting that light at the end of the tunnel, AI is the only scalable solution to help us reverse it. So this is a reversible problem, right? This is something that it's not just accepting it and saying, all right, well, we'll just ride it out for the next 49 years and see how best we can do. It's something that can be reversed and must be reversed. And there are organizations who are already reversing it on their own. The way we're doing it is by using the technology that's available and understanding, just like the for-profits understand the motivations for how people are going to purchase in the future, we can understand the motivations for philanthropy, right? We have access to, again, the largest charitable giving database, which we pull publicly. All the information we have on external giving history is based on annual reports, on honor rolls, on or donor honor rolls and 990s. So all public information to see where individuals giving to other nonprofits, do they give to similar or dissimilar? And then we're working with clients to get all the data that's accessible by you, that you've been tracking in your CRMs and databases, to say, what is the motivation for each individual to make a gift? How engaged are they with your organizations? How are they showing up and giving you the attention that you're trying to get from them, right? Are there some individuals who are raising their hands and not even getting that attention back from you, right? We know that nonprofits are under-resourced, so you all probably have way too many individuals that you can actively engage with. So who are the individuals that you should be engaging with based on how they're currently showing up and have been showing up with your organization? So AI can help build trust and empathy. We can drive precision, creativity, and personalization. We can really use these tools to make sure that we're looking at the right people and addressing them in ways that they want to be addressed, and establishing a stronger, beneficial, mutual relationship between us and the donors that are trying to engage with us further. What we refer to this as precision philanthropy. Right? Precision medicine has been going on for years. Precision medicine is physicians using AI and advanced technologies to understand that not all patients are the same. Even patients who have the same diagnosis are not the same, right? Cancer is not just one type of cancer. A 40-year-old man with lung cancer could show up another 40-year-old man with lung cancer, but there are two different diagnoses, two different ways that those cancers are presenting themselves in those patients based on their own personal demographics, based on the actual DNA of that disease. So precision medicine has been seeing that diseases are an N of one, that each unique case is exactly that, a unique case. It doesn't just fall into this bucket of, this is a 40-year-old man presenting with lung cancer, but let's look at this person's history, this person's DNA specifically to figure out how to address and cure that specific individual. That's what we could do with precision philanthropy. It's not about hiring more major gift officers. It's about giving the staff the tools that they need to see each donor and each prospect as an N of one, as having their own unique journey with that organization, with your organization, their own unique journey in being a non-donor, but engaging with you with external information, or being a donor and waxing and waning in terms of how much they want to contribute, how high of a priority you are with them. So being able to be that specific and that precise allows you to be that much more efficient in your outreach and in your performance with these individuals. Now, AI is this blanket term, right? And AI, it becomes confusing because the term AI has been around for 40 years, right? James, we could have a whole other conversation about that, I'm sure. But the term AI has been around for 40 years, but what it defines has always been like a moving target, right? AI as a field is identifying things that a computer can do that used to only be able to be done by humans. But when the term first came out, one of the challenges that they were trying to solve was, can AI play checkers, right? Right now, that is such a simple concept. Like, we wouldn't even think twice about using AI to play checkers, but back 40 years ago, that was a very novel idea, right? And so the capability of the same term has evolved so significantly over the past 40 years, and even over the past 2 years, that it's really hard to kind of wrap your arms around, right? And there's so many different forms of AI and different things and terms that are associated with it, like deep learning or DL, or machine learning or ML, which one is part of the other, right? Augmented reality versus virtual reality. There's blockchain, there's NLP, there's generative AI. Like, these are all terms that are associated with AI, and it makes it a very convoluted concept to really fully understand for many people, because it's so vast and so widespread and so associated with anything and everything. Like, how can you actually really know what's going on when it's everywhere and anywhere all at the same time, right? So what we really focus on here, especially in the nonprofit sector, the tools that are going to be the most impactful to us are at this current moment, and this will change, but at the current moment are predictive AI and generative AI. And these are two distinct tools, right? They are not one and the same. They cannot be used in the same manner or to answer the same questions, right? They are two complementary tools, but with very specific purposes and outcomes and tasks associated with each. Predictive precision is very logical, it's quantitative, it's objective, it answers questions that have a definitive answer set, right? Like multiple choice, right? How much will this person give? 500, 1,000, 5,000, right? Will this person give in the next 10 years or next 10 months? Yes, no. There's a multiple choice questions, right? Generative AI is more open-ended. It's more fluid. It's more creative and qualitative and subjective. And the difference, another difference is if I gave the same data points to a predictive AI model, it'll always give me the same exact outcome. Always. The response will always be the exact same thing. You could ask the same exact question to ChatGPT 10 times and mostly get the same response, but it's still going to be different each time, right? Just like if I asked Frank the same question 10 times, the general answer will be the same, but the words he used, the cadence he uses, the way he puts that answer together may be different each time, right? It's more creative, it's more subjective, it's more fluid. So these are not tools that can replace each other, but they can play off of each other here. AI, predictive AI, is really the powerhouse that's been going on behind the scenes for so long. Generative AI has been around for a while, but really came into the scene in again 2022 with ChatGPT. But predictive AI is why Amazon is as big as it is, why Netflix is as big as it is. Netflix has a proprietary recommendation algorithm, which is all using predictive AI, and they are a powerhouse in terms of this space, right? If you ever heard the term FANG, F-A-A-N-G, now it's MANG, M-A-A-N-G. It's the biggest companies that are using AI. It stands for Facebook or Meta, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. If you think about all those, Netflix doesn't really fit in that space. They don't have hardware like Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Google does, right? They don't have multiple services, right? Facebook has Instagram and WhatsApp. Google has Google Search and Google Maps. Apple has music and podcasts and Apple TV. Netflix just has one thing, Netflix, and it has had that for a decade now, right? It just transitioned from CD or DVDs to streaming, but it's only ever done this one thing. Started getting into gaming, but I don't think that's a big player. But they're in that FANG term because their AI has been so powerful that it's driving this company to be just an absolute beast in terms of applying this technology. They're using predictive AI. They're learning what you've watched, when you watch it, when you pause, when you stop, when you skip ahead, when you watch something again, do you complete a season, and using all that to determine what are you likely to watch next, and then recommending that to you. Predictive AI can solve modern fundraising challenges. Though, who will make their first gift? Will someone give again in a certain time period? How likely are they to become a monthly sustainer? All of these are very yes, no, very definitive questions with definitive answers, right? AI can really sift through a complex sea of data to find patterns that we as humans would not be able to, right? Humans, we can capture kind of about, hold on to 10 to 15 different data points in our head at any given moment, and that's a lot. Predictive AI can go into thousands of calculations per person in seconds and be able to sift through and find a unique specific patterns that Frank and Sarah might have the same first gift date, last gift amount, largest gift amount, but all different patterns in between there and demographic information that make them look like two distinct donors and not just the same quote unquote profile, right? So predictive AI sifts through thousands of data points, millions of data points to make sure that it's finding that specific outcome for a specific person to answer these questions. On the other hand, generative AI can take action on those. If I know that Frank is a donor who's likely to be become a sustainer in the next 12 months and is giving primarily to the annual fund as opposed to any capital campaigns. And their gifts have gone to, a certain type of outreach or appeal or anything like that. I can put all that information that I know about him, put it into a generative AI tool, and have a specific appeal written for him, right? So it's not the same appeal that everyone else is getting. It's not generalized to every specific person. It's specific to Frank and Frank alone. What we're doing here is we're able to design personalized materials, introduce unique themes. If you've ever used generative AI, it is incredible at brainstorming, at coming up with unique and novel concepts and ideas, taking two things that are seemingly unrelated and finding a connection between the two. It is just such a powerful tool, and it can do it so quickly and so easily that it really allows us to precision or predictive AI allows us to find the N of one. Generative AI allows us to speak to that N of one, right? Speak to each individual and in your database as a unique individual with a unique history of giving to you. A common example I use is annual reports. Annual reports go out every year. I honestly don't know anybody who's super excited about creating the annual report every year, but every year it's going out and it's saying, this is what we as an organization did with your help as donors, right? But it's very generic. Every person, no matter if it's their first gift or that year they made their first $5,000 gift, or they just became a sustainer, or they named one of your buildings, they're getting the same annual report generally, right? However, you could take generative AI to make a specific annual report to them. Say, this is what we did as an organization, and Frank, we did it with your help because you made your first gift of $500 this year. You've been supporting us for 15 years now. You really made a significant increase in your level of support, and we could not have done this without you. And tie in together all those stories. You could make a video of all the impact Frank's gifts has made based on the appeals he's responded to and the funds he's supported, and have that specific for him and have that video in 15 seconds. So predictive AI allows us to identify the people and what they're going to do. Generative AI allows us to speak to them at their level of interest. And so by leveraging the two of them together, we can really get efficient in what we're doing, right? It's no longer the same appeal to the same 15,000 people because we assume that they're all going to respond the same way, but identifying maybe the top 7,000 people that are almost guaranteed to respond, and what are the 50 different ways that they fall into certain buckets that we can speak to them more appropriately, if not all 7,000. And what we're seeing when organizations are using AI, they see these ROIs. They're being more precise and more personalized, right? Which allows them to be more efficient. There was a Microsoft study that came out, I think 2 months ago, that asked 31,000 users across 31 different countries. And in those responses, 80 to 90% of people are saying that AI has helped them save time. It allows them to focus on their most important work. It allows them to be more creative, and it allows them to enjoy their work more. If you have the tools that allow you to do your work better, you are going to enjoy that work more, right? Because now you can actually do it. You're not bogged down by things that you didn't want to do but were necessary for you to execute on your task. You can use AI to offload on things that you don't like doing and focus on the things that you do want to do, which allow you just to be more passionate about your work. And it's not just that we want to see these things happen. We know that there are significant challenges outside of giving that nonprofit sector is facing. There was another report that came out, the social impact sector survey. I'm getting that wrong. But the survey came out, I think, 6 months ago, and they asked nonprofit employees about what things are looking like in the future, right? They asked them, do you plan on staying in your role in the next year? 74% of them said that they will be looking for a new job this year if they aren't already. 68% of them uncertain if they would continue to work in the nonprofit sector. So they might leave this sector as a whole. And the number one reason, or tied for the number one reason, is under-resourced and overworked, right? AI is a tool that is there. Again, if you're a DonorSearch client, you already have access to it. Generative AI is $20 a month, or you can use free licenses. These are tools that allow your team to be more efficient, allow them to do their work better, allow them to have the power of 2 or 3 workers, right? A lot of numbers that were coming out say that it gives individuals 20% of their time back, which is essentially an entire day in a week, right? Having a Friday of you don't have to do anything. You can focus on your tasks that you haven't been able to do, or focus on outreach to individuals, right? By being able to offload this work to AI, to computers technology, it allows you to do the human things that computers cannot do best, right? You to do that outreach to these individuals, check up on them, reach out to them, reach out to individuals that you haven't reached out to yet because predictive AI is telling you this person's more likely to respond than this person. All right, engage with that individual, figure out their story. They're going to respond to you because they've been showing up as all the data has shown. So you're going to have a better response rate and be able to use that time more efficiently in having lunch meetings or virtual meetings or phone calls with these people who want to hear from you. So by being able to, again, use that AI to fill in the gaps of where you just don't have the manpower, you don't have the resources to do all your work or do it as efficiently, the answer is here. The answer is here, staring us right in the face, and it's time to get started if you haven't already. So how do we do that? Again, you may be at all different journeys or all different steps on your journey. AI, first off, is a journey. There is no end destination. You're always on this journey forever because it always gets better. You can always apply it more. So it's not just, hey, we're using AI, we checked off that box, we're done. But hey, where's the first place that we can use AI? What's a significant challenge that we're facing as an organization? And is there a tool, an AI tool that can help answer that need? Let's try that out. Let's see how that works. If that works, let's move on to what's the second most challenging situation that we're facing, and is there a tool that answers that need? So it's iterative. It's a continual collaborative, iterative process between you, your team, and the vendor you're working with, if you're using an outside vendor, to make sure that you're doing this in a beneficial way and doing it in areas that you can see the most impact. So work with your team to identify everybody's been talking about AI, right? You've been hearing about it for years now. What are some things that you've heard that you might be interested in trying out? Where are, again, some areas that you think you're falling behind as an organization or you're having significant challenges in that you want to look to see, is there anything that's specifically built to answer this, right? Email outreach, there are tools for that. Identifying donors, there are tools for that. Identifying acquisition tools. So there probably is some tool that's specific to your needs, right? It's just a matter of identifying and prioritizing what your needs are, and then bringing in all the team members around to get their perspective, right? AI works best with a lot of data, but also a lot of perspectives to understand how is the tool going to be used? How is it not going to be used? Do we really know, again, AI is not a silver bullet. It's not going to solve everything. It's specific tools with specific purposes that will solve specific challenges. When you do that collectively, then you see significant results, right? But it's not, we purchase one AI tool, it's going to solve every problem we have. So doing your assessments, setting realistic goals to make sure that you're not, boiling the ocean of, all right, we need to increase retention by 35% and we need to hit a $50 million goal in the next 2 years. Let's break that down into bite-sized pieces. What is it that you specifically need to do? You need to find better donors. You need to find people who are engaged with you more. You need to stop spending money on people who aren't likely to respond, or have your major officers reach out to people who aren't likely to respond to you. So breaking that down into bite-sized pieces, and then again, identifying the tools that are there that are built already to do this. Resources. There's tons of resources to learn about this. For not to, I guess, shameless plug. Fundraising AI is a free membership-driven organization. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on our website, www.fundraising.ai. When I was talking about beneficial AI before, we built a framework for nonprofits to use to identify and for vendors to abide by, to identify, is this tool not just responsible and ethical as it should be, but also beneficial? And the reason we refer to it as beneficial is when you purchase something from a for-profit organization, you get something tangible in return, right? So you can evaluate, did you or did you not like the relationship you had with that organization based on this tangible thing that you have in your hand, in your house, right? when you give your money to a nonprofit, all you get in return is trust. You're trusting that the organization is using your funds as they say they're going to, and directing them towards the mission or towards overhead for that mission, and executing as best as they can. That trust is all you have. So if we have AI that comes to our sector, is used in our sector, that it doesn't allow individuals to trust that organization, then there's going to be significant blowback, right? If we lose that trust, that's it. I don't know how many people here would raise their hand that they trust Facebook or Meta, right? But Facebook, Meta, they keep getting record quarters in terms of revenue, in terms of users, because they're getting a service back. People are getting a service. So they're willing to look across the fact that they don't trust them because they're getting that immediate reaction. We don't have that that luxury here in the nonprofit sector. So we need to make sure that what we're using as AI tools are responsible, ethical, but also beneficial for our sector and for those that we serve. So Fundraising AI, we also have a podcast where we talk about AI tools and how can you use them if you're a prospect researcher, if you're a major gift officer, if you're a grant writer. How is your nonprofit? What tools are coming out each week? We do this every week. Thank you, James. We do this every week and talk to people who are in your space, nonprofits that are using AI. How are they addressing it? Vendors who are building AI for you. What types of tools are they building? How are they seeing AI making an impact in our sector? So tune into that, but there's plenty of thousands of other resources. LinkedIn, I follow people like Ethan Malik, Connor Grennan, Ali K. Miller. They're all key in talking about things that are coming out, and they have great resources on Google courses that are available. Fundraising AI podcast name is simple, the Fundraising AI podcast. We did not use generative AI to come up with that creative name. That was all in our head somehow. So if there's no shortage of resources, reach out to me on LinkedIn, reach out to Nathan Chappelle on LinkedIn. We're able to get you in the right direction, depending on what it is your use case is or where you're going. But just some final thoughts, and I'll kind of just leave this up, and then if we want to turn it to questions, I'm happy to use the rest of the time to answer any questions.
Thank you, Scott. We actually do have some questions here. One of them is, how can we leverage AI using donor data without compromising data security, especially around demographic and other especially sensitive data?
Is that in, so I'll answer it two different ways. One is with predictive AI, if you're using a vendor, make sure that they have compliances that abide by this, right? We're DonorSearch, I can only speak DonorSearch, we're SOC 2 compliant, right, which is a very high standard of data security. So we are abiding by all the rules. All our client data that client sent to us only stay accessible to that client. It's not shared with anyone else. So ask your vendors what their security practices are, what their data privacy practices are, to make sure that you're doing that. For generative AI, obviously you don't want to put in, Frank, I keep picking on you, but it's the only face I see, and it's right next to mine. So you don't want to put in, Frank Choi at 11245 Dovedale Court, and this is all that he's given to us. This is his email, his phone number. But you might say, all right, I have donor A. Donor A has given $100 to this fund on this date, and $250 to this fund on this date, and $350 to this fund on this date. What's the best way to reach out to them? So you can have it anonymized but you still are able to tie it back to a specific individual. You can put that into a spreadsheet, or you can have 5,000 rows, and then as long as you have a column that maps to another data set, you can easily do a connection there, but making sure that you're not giving any information to generative AI tool that it could be used in training sets. You could also, if you're using ChatGPT or Perplexity, which is my favorite tool, you can turn off training settings so that it's not training on any of your data. So a number of different answers, not unfortunately one simple quick answer there, but make sure the tools that you're using, that there are privacy practices in place, that you understand what they are to the best of your knowledge. If you have a whole, they bring you to their privacy link or their privacy page, copy and paste that and throw it in ChatGPT and say, is there anything I need to be concerned about here, right? From a nonprofit perspective of providing data to this vendor. Am I going to be at risk of having my data used for other clients and so on? So that's another tool I would use.
Great. Piggybacking off of that, just out of curiosity, because this is something that I've always gotten as a question in prospect research. You know, we would always get questioned about like, well, what if a donor comes to me and ask if this is ethical? Like, can we really, where are they getting my information from? Do they have the right to have my, have access to my information? AI is such a much more advanced and um, penetrative thing, like it almost seems on steroids. How would you, if a client or a nonprofit were to come and have those kind of worries, those kind of like ethical worries, like how would you address that?
Again, I would, in my personal example, I would bring up the fundraising AI framework, right? And say, let's go through, let's find the tools that you're using. Are they abiding by this, right? How are they capturing data? If we're getting data from a nonprofit, the assumption is that if I'm a donor, I'm giving you my data, that's my opt-in, right? That data could be used, right? So, but that won't always sustain. There are going to be laws that are coming down that, federally at the state level, of different levels of consent. Right? We're already kind of seeing that in Europe with GDPR. We're seeing that in California, and new states or other states are going to have those different varying levels of consent. So making sure that treating consent as appropriately as possible based on where you're located. Obviously, I think we're all located in Maryland, except for CJ and some others coming from across the border or across other state borders. So going through that framework really lays out what are the ethical considerations that we need to make sure our tools are abiding by, that our vendors are abiding by, and then go through them one by one. And that can be shared if you adopt that. Some organizations, some nonprofits, we're putting this out as a template for nonprofits to use as their own governance policy. Other nonprofits are using this fundraising AI framework for their nonprofit policy. Also, fundraising AI is not associated with DonorSearch. It's just happen to work for DonorSearch and volunteer for fundraising AI. DonorSearch is a sponsor, as are others. Fundraising AI, if you have it as a framework, that can then be shared with your donors. That can be put on your website, right? Say, this is how we're using data, using AI technologies, and doing it in a responsible, ethical, and beneficial way for organization, for our donors, for our prospects, our constituents, and so
on. We have another question. How might AI discriminate? How concerned should we be?
That's a. Just want to make sure I'm addressing the question. So AI, it's only using the data that's tracked in the database, right? Or tracked in the data sets that it's being combined. So at DonorSearch AI, we aren't using things like race or gender or age or even wealth to build into a model, because those are not the reasons why people give. If we built a model incorporating race, gender, age, and wealth, it would most likely say, all right, if you're an older, white, rich male, you're probably likely to give. But that's really because that's how philanthropy has gone, targeting older, white, rich males, unfortunately, right? So we don't incorporate any of those biased data points. But then Connor, to answer your question, again, I can only answer from this perspective. Understanding what the models are using to prioritize. So when we go through and we build a model for a client, multiple times through our process, we are transparent in what we're doing. So we're saying, here's what your model looks like so far. Here's the top data points. And we don't move ahead in deploying that model unless we get confirmation from the client that that's acceptable to them, right? So if there are any discriminatory data points, you'll be able to clearly see them in the data set. Once a model is deployed, if someone say, hey, Frank has a score of 80, why? We can show you every data point that was driven in there. So there are ways that AI can discriminate, but you can avoid that by making sure the data that's being fed into it, by making sure the features that the model is relying on, and all of that relies on transparency with, again, either your vendor or your data provider, of what is being used and how can we be ensured that the right data points are used when making these types of predictions. So as long as if you just feed any data and you have no kind of like, you're not asking those questions, then there might be some level of concern there, right? But if you know what data is being fed into and you can have that transparency back and forth, then you should be able to alleviate any of those concerns.
Wonderful.